The first hand we'll go over, I pick up pocket jacks in the small blind, player in middle position, raises to 20. He has a short stack, the button calls, my hand is good enough to raise, I 3-bet to 100. Hoping to get it in right now with a pre-flop raiser, but that doesn't happen, he just flats, leaving himself with 100 behind. The button folds, we're heads up, the flop comes Jack 10-3 with 2 hearts. It's a pretty good flop for us. I don't want to scare the opponent off, who has less than a half pot size bet left in his stack, so I give him some rope and I check. He knows exactly what to do with that rope. He jams. Easy decision. I call. The player turns over pocket 7, so he's drawing nearly dead. The turn is a queen. We have this one locked up. The river is another 3. We make a boat and begin the session on the right foot. It gets even better as I'm delivered a victory beer from a guy named Nidus. Then I pick up pocket jacks again. There's a button straddle, and here the small blind acts first. He raises to 30. He should have a very tight range since he's going to play the entire hand out of position and there are 8 other players left to act behind him. For that reason, I should be flatting with jacks. That's not what I do. I 3-bet to 100, folds back to the small blind. He puts in a 4-bet to 280. This is incredibly strong. I should have a very narrow 3-bet range, and he's telling me that his hand is better. He may just flat with ace-king, so I put him on aces or kings. I'm getting a little more than 2-1 on a call. If I flop a jack, I'll likely be able to stack the opponent, but that's tough to do, especially twice in an hour. Folding's probably the best option, but I call. Flop comes ace-queen 4 with 2 spades. It's about as bad as it gets. The opponent checks. Feels like a trap. I'm not falling for it. I check back. The turn is an 8. The opponent bets 190. I fold immediately, and I'm shown the nuts. He's got aces. Before I can even finish typing the notes in on that hand, I pick up pocket 10s in the small blind. A player in middle position raises to 25. Not able to pay attention to all the pre-flop action because I'm distracted, but I call, and so do a few other players. The flop comes 8-6-5 with 2 diamonds. We've got an overpair. Checks to the pre-flop raiser. He bets 95. I call. The big blind raised to 275. He's check raised flops a few times since I've been here. He can't always have it. There are a ton of draws out there, and the fact that I don't have the 10 of diamonds makes it a lot more likely that he has a combo draw. The middle position player folds. I only have 500 left in my stack. I rip it in. The big blind calls with 9-7 offsuit for the straight. It turns out that he does always have it.
7. Oh, you have straight. 10 ball?
Straight, yeah.
All right, nice hand.
We didn't win that one, and we take a one-way trip to Paintown. As you can see, Paintown is right here. It's a place that I think I subconsciously like because I've been going there every day. If someone doesn't take me there, then I've been taking myself. And then here they have Valley of They Always Have It that shares similar features as Paintown, but a little bit different. And then over here, this is Brentwood, California. This is where bankrolls go to die. Then I Always Have It Heights. Never actually been here. I hear it's nice. This is top of the graph peak up here. Usually I'm in this area, or at least I have been in the last couple years. I tried to build a permanent residence here, but unfortunately a Category 5 hurricane has destroyed that house, and there's a lot of recovery work that needs to be done. I'm definitely tilted about how this day is going. When that happens, my mistakes tend to compound. Go to a new table where I've got Queen 9 suited under the gun +1. I open to 15. This is too wide of an open from this position. The big blind calls. We're heads up. The flop is ace 10-5 rainbow with 1 diamond. The big blind checks. I should have a lot more strong aces in my range than the big blind, so I bet 20. If I get called, there are plenty of good cards for me on the turn, like any king, jack, 8, or any diamond. Queen or 9 wouldn't be too bad either. I do get called. The turn is the 4 diamonds. We pick up a flush draw. Big blind checks again. This is one of those cards that gives me another opportunity to fire. I bet 55 as a semi-bluff. Big blind calls, but I don't get the sense that he's very strong. The river is another 4. We don't get there. We have about the worst hand that we could have. Big blind checks. I have almost no showdown value. I unload the clip, fire for 135. Player tanks, and eventually he calls with ace-3 offsuit, so he's got the winner. My decision to widen my range pre-flop gets me in trouble, and I'm stuck piles of cash. The player's name is Anthony. He gets some money, but in return he gives me a very cool 1-ounce Isle of Man Silver Angel coin. I looked it up, and it's actually worth quite a bit of money. It means a lot to me, and I'm sure it'll mean a lot to whoever purchased it from me on eBay. We're playing great, so when we pick up 8-4 suited in the big blind in the straddle pot, we know what to do. We call for 5 more. Under the gun +1 calls, under the gun +2 makes it 55. The hijack calls, I'm getting 3-1 and I hate money, so I call for 45 more. I believe this is the first time on the vlog we've ever called a raise with 8-4 suited. That's because you shouldn't be doing it. under the gun +1 folds. 3 of us are seeing the flop. It's ace 10 3, all spades. We flop a flush, and we're rewarded for playing undisciplined poker pre-flop. What a dream. I check, under the gun +2 down bets to 40. The hijack min raises to 90. I re-raise to 300. Under the gun +2 folds. The hijack is all in for maybe slightly more. We might already have him covered with the 300, but we toss in a calling chip as a formality. We get some bad news.
I do have a flush. Yours is probably better.
The opponent turns over jack 9 of spades. We get flush over flushed. Turns out that dream situation we were in is a nightmare. We get punished for playing 8-4 suited, and rightfully so. We're in for 2,600 total. 800 is what's in front of us. We're stuck about 1,800, and we're getting wrecked. After that, we pick up deuces under the gun +1, and I open to 15. Cutoff calls. The big blind 3 bets to 80. I call. Cutoff folds. We're heads up. The flop comes 9-8 deuce with 2 spades. We flop bottom set. Hard to imagine the big blind 3 bet with 9s or 8s, so we almost definitely have the best hand. The big blind down bets is 75. This is a draw heavy board, so I prefer to get in as much money now as possible. I raise to 250, hoping that the big blind will jam. Said he flats. The turn is the queen of spades. It's an interesting card because the flush gets there. I'm also losing the pocket queens, which is a likely holding that we could be up against. And I'm losing the jack 10 as well, but that's not as likely. The big blind checks. In hindsight, I should be betting this card. I can certainly get calls from hands like aces and kings, especially if they have a spade. Even a hand like jacks with the jack of spades could potentially call. I'm somewhat scared, so I check. The river is another bad card. It's a jack. There are 4 to the straight out there. The big blind checks. I suspect that I'm still ahead, so I try to go for what has become thin value with bottom set on a scary board. Put 400 out there. The big blind considers it, and he eventually lets his hand go. We win another one that's pretty large. We're on the comeback trail. We play another bomb pot. This one's for $20, and we have 6-3 hearts in the cutoff. Flop is 6-5-4 rainbow with 1 heart. Chris bets 35 in middle position. The hijack calls. I call with my top pair and open-ended straight draw. The button comes along, and so does the under the gun player. 5 of us see the turn. It's a deuce. We like that one a lot. We now have a straight. The under the gun player checks. Chris bets 240. The hijack folds. I'm concerned that Chris might have flopped a higher straight. Can't do anything other than call. That's what I do. The button and under the gun player fold. It's heads up. The river is a 7. This might have helped me if I were up against 7-3. Chris bets 200. I call. Chris has 4-3 of diamonds. We chop it up, and we're happy to do so in this situation. I'm having fun. It's a very favorable night at Maryland Live, but it's about to be even more favorabler because we've got pocket aces at our 8th and final table of the night. Under the gun +2 opens at 25. I'm in middle position, and I 3-bet to 80. Under the gun +2 calls. We're heads up. The flop is jack 7-3. Seems safe. Under the gun +2 checks. I down bet to 70. The player calls. The turn is the deuce of hearts. The player checks. I bet 150. He calls again. I'm a little worried that we might be up against a set of jacks. The river is an ace. My fears quickly vanish. 5-4 makes a straight, but that's an extremely unlikely holding that we'd be up against. We essentially have the nuts. Under the gun +2 leads into us for 325. Seems like he has a very strong hand or he's bluffing. Hoping that I'm up against a set or possibly ace-jack. Couldn't be more excited. The player has about 1,400 left in his stack. Perhaps I get a little overzealous and I shove, thinking that people have been calling me down all day. It'd be difficult for the player to fold a set if that's what he has, especially if he has jacks. I think a shove may look more like a bluff too. After tanking for a long time, the player does fold, and he told me that he laid down a set of 7s. It's tough to know if that's what he had for sure, but I tend to believe him. We get too anxious on that one, causing us to lose a lot of value by giving him an opportunity to fold without getting too hurt. I'm mad at myself for getting greedy and letting the player off the hook in a cooler situation. On a positive note, we get completely out of an $1,800 hole and miraculously book a $240 win after playing for almost 9 hours.